Thanks you are together with us today. We know that it's a quite busy week with many events, and we'll be finished with election here in Romania. And it's an interesting fit for our talk, because Christina with me started this series of talks from the idea to have a safe space where we can all together keep the dialogue open and share from our experience, learn from each other, and develop together. Either we are professional coaches or mentors in a well-known association or not. If we are in business, leader or not leaders, or we are clients of coaching and mentoring. So everybody is welcome. We was able, and we are very happy to gather 7 great guests with us together today, and we'll have some contract as is used in coaching. We are not here to sell anything. We are not here to show off. We are just here to pay it forward, to tell from our experience, to learn from your questions, and to pay it forward to be better, each of us. So our first meeting was with Romanians from all over the world, from New Zealand to United States, and based on the co-creation process at that time, Christina had the wonderful idea to see how foreigners perceive Romanians and Romania, and to have one question in the underline of our talks today, which is, if we ask Romanians if they want to go abroad, probably many of them will say, yes, we want to emigrate from Romania. However, we see foreigners coming in Romania, and certainly most of them are remaining much more in Romania than how they thought would be when first time coming this place. So Christina, any other administrative issue or anything to say?
Absolutely. Warm welcome, first of all, from my side also, and I'm really thrilled that we got to this point. I think it was a wonderful journey until now, and it looks like it's going to take place also in the next months. Because there's so many ideas coming along, and there's so many conversations that we would like to have and continue having. What I want to make sure is that we cover a couple of things that are related to the framework also. So everyone that is just in attendee mode, they will only be able to see the screen, see us like we are right now. But if you have any questions, just type them in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll pick it up and see what are your thoughts, or what do you want to share with us as questions or ideas. We said it from the beginning, there's going to be split in 2 parts. One is just like this, in this webinar mode, that will take about 2 hours, where it's just going to be us, video and audio. Everyone else just can type. After these 2 hours, we'll invite everyone in, and then you can also share your screen, and we can also discuss together as a networking session, as a chance of kind of like simulating a real event, where we will have a chance to talk to people after that and grab a coffee together. We'll try to do that virtually. I only have water with me, so we'll try to work with what we have. But that's pretty much how we were going to schedule this one today. So first of all, is just us on the screen, and after that, everyone. If there would be the big request, as we said it before, we would gladly also issue a certificate of attendance. I know EMCC looked into how you can get credits for this one. I know that I had conversations with ICF how you can use that one for CPDs. My main big huge request is please type your complete name. I do recall from the previous session where again we issued certificates and they were counting for credits for all accreditations. It was a huge work to figure out, to do the matching between the list from Eventbrite and the names from the participants now. So if you could just type your complete name, that would be wonderful for us, so we know to whom should we send them. Besides that, that will be it. So 2 parts, name. If you have questions or anything, please share them directly by writing or texting. Okay. Wonderful. I think that's pretty much what we had as setting the scene, and as Vlad mentioned, that's how we got here. The next thing that I would like to invite us to do, it would be just to make sure that we introduce everyone also in a verbal way, because I know that Vlad especially took this job of introducing everyone on social media, posting something about all of you, posting all of the wonderful things that you send us. But I would take a short round to just say kind of like what impressed us from the conversations that we had, from all of the wonderful exchange of ideas that we had also in the kickoff. And I would just say, we kind of like randomly tried to group to split in the two so we can both introduce everyone. And I would start with Paul, for example. And Paul, I'm really happy that we got to know you. And I think that what impressed me the most was this beautiful TED Talk. I think I told you about it one more time. But it was, for me, even if the title or the topic was not culture, there were in there so many nuggets related to culture and how you perceived culture in so many regions of the world. And if there's anyone that hasn't had a chance to listen to Paul's TED Talk, I can type in the chat the link, or we can also post it after that one more time on the all of the social pages of the event, because it's worthwhile investing those pretty much 12 minutes, I think there are, something like that. 18. And that's a wonderful, as I said, it's a wonderful way of reaching towards culture also, even if you're talking about something else. So Paul, that's what impressed me mostly about you. I know there are a million other things that you are wonderful in doing. I would also ask you to say, what would be your best hopes for today, for example? What would be something that you want to share right now about yourself with the audience?
You promoting me even more. How about that, huh? So we don't need to promote each other. Christine and Vlad is going to do it for us. No, I really appreciate that. I put a lot of time in that talk because I wanted to give back, and it's very much in line with what you and Vlad are doing here. Giving back, giving forward. I'm also part of the Rotary Club, where service above self is a motto. And I really do like giving back. And that's what I was impressed with the invitation is I love coaching. But what you're doing is amazing, and you're both to be congratulated. And it's always fun to be with peers, that do the same thing. And specifically here, that the parallel of, Romanians emigrating, but you've got a lot of people that love this country so much and decided to do the opposite. So I'm very happy to be here. For a quick introduction, I'm from Ottawa, Canada. I'm a PCC with ICF. Been coaching for 8 years. I coach teams and individuals.
Thank you, Paul. Wonderful. Just to alternate, I'm going to switch to Petra. And Petra, I think obviously one part that I know about you is solution focused, and that's, we kind of like try to speak in that direction, the same language, and that's that's the reason why every time when I talk about things like best hopes and I know that you're in this virtual room, I'm like, yeah, that's something that we have as a common language. One thing that I really loved about the moment when you introduced yourself to the group, you said that you married into the country. that you marry not only a person, but you also married a country. And that's a beautiful way of summarizing how I perceive it as a deep respect and love for the culture and everything that's around it. So that was one thing that stuck to my mind when you said it, even if I know you also before that, but that was one thing when you said it, then it was sounding so, wow, true, beautiful. So would you like also to say a couple of best hopes or something about yourself?
Yes, that's really, it's my choice to live here. And I sometimes say, I mean, I came here because my partner had a job here, and out of love to him, I came to Romania. And out of love to me, we stayed in Romania, that you decided to stay here. Because at the beginning I said, I'm going to come for 1 year. After in 95, I asked, oh, Romania, where is that? And then I recognized how beautiful the country is and how many really interesting people I've met. And I think we're going to speak more about that. And what my best hopes is about, really, I'm happy about this variety that we are here on this panel from the different countries, different perspectives, different backgrounds. We all join the passion for coaching. And for me, my best hopes is that, yeah, we have a very colorful discussion where I go out of it also with energy. And I say, wow, I didn't think that this is something really what we could all put together. So that's something we are co-creating together. Because that's for me what the magic of coaching is. It's something that we co-create with our clients. It's not like a training that we say, okay, this is what I want to deliver. But in the discussion is something emerging. And a friend of mine, Katja Jankowski, she's also a coach from Switzerland. She says, when people come together, something magical happens. And that's what I'm just curious about. And I like this topic about coaching in Romania because it brings two things important for me together. And I'm working as a coach for 15 years now. My background is in HR. And when I came in contact with coaching, it was really changed my perspective on how conversations can be. And that's the reason also why I started a coaching school, to spread the virus.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Petra. I'm going to say a couple of words about one more person that is on the panel. And Basav, it's about you that I'm talking. I really love the way you say you use the syntax of reimagine leadership. And I find it so powerful. And I find it so powerful also because it is the image that I have of you. Because of having that huge life, because I think it was truly like you can associate it to a full life in that organization. And reaching those leadership positions, reaching those positions and touching those people in that organization, and then kind of like moving outside of it and doing something that is even more powerful because it influences also the people that are in other organizations, but in the same time, it allows you to bring all of that life to life. So I really like the syntax, man. It was impressive, all of the conversations that we had also before when we first got to know you, and you were talking about kind of like all of those experiences in other countries and how those are in correlation also to the country that you're coming from, to the country where you are now. So I'll let you also to say a couple of words, and thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Christina. And like Paul said, I think you're doing us too much of a favor by your introductions. But at the end of the day, again, similar to what Petra said, I love having a conversation. And part of the joy of having that conversation is to see how the conversation evolves, rather than predetermining what you want out of it. So that is why I'm here. The reason I'm in Romania is very simple. It's because of Romanians. I mean, they make you feel very welcome, and they make the decision very easy to stay on. You're right about my very strong corporate career before this, and talking of culture, that in itself is a huge cultural influence. Having stayed in one company for so long is a source of who I am, really, and to be able to move out of that and transition into coaching is, again, it's something, and coaching here in Romania is something that I think Romanians have played a large part in making it easy for me to do. So I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be here with all of you on the panel, and I look forward to seeing what we talk about.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Pascal. Vlad, do you want to take a turn now? And I'll take a look at the chat because I think there's some things already written in there, and I'll try to see if there's anything to pick up.
Sure. And I always get the feedback I'm talking too much, so I hope the guest I'm going to present will not be upset that I will not make such a nice intro as Christina is doing. But I will give you the opportunity to talk more. So first is Bruno. I know Bruno from many years about walking through fire, and recently looking after him as a guest in our event, I got a nice story about how butterfly kill themselves looking for the light and making the mistake going in the fire as well. And from our talk together, it was very nice how he put himself in a position of vagabond, which make us to keep our promise of diversity and inclusion, and help us to have a broad guest list. So Bruno, please.
So this was the first question I asked to Christina. Are you sure that other coaches want to have me in the middle? Because I'm very apart in everything I do. Just 2 words about my presence in Romania, because when in '89 the Berlin Wall broke down, before the wall, for us as Italian Occidental, everything about East country was in black and white. We didn't know anything. It was something only our communists said to us something about. We don't know. And as I'm very curious, I'm very crazy, I'm go to there. And I was in Poland just to see what happened there. I didn't like it at all because too many things. I didn't like it. And then I tried in Romania just to see what's happened. And it was fantastic. I discovered these people completely crazy. You have an office, the day after, no more office. Everyone had a business for me, and they have the idea. I had to put the money, of course, and it was completely crazy. And then I started something to have some business collaboration, very fantasy. I have a marriage agency. I have with a magazine, business magazine, and that's all. But I never stood too much in Romania fix. So everyone know me in Romania, but I didn't stay too much. Just in 2000, 2004, because I had some problem with my kids, I have to escape from Italy. It's a long story. I was I don't joke, there was Interpol looking for me because I take my children, I put them in Romania. It's a long story, interesting one. When I have my biography, I'll do it. Then, what about coaching in Romania? As I said in our meeting, I am aged man. I am 61, and I saw the coaching started. I saw it from the beginning, and I liked it very much because it was a good description of what I tried to do. And then I don't like too much now. I said coaching, official coaching, has taken a strange direction. I don't like too much. I prefer my version of coaching. I made a brand. I don't know. I don't make coaching. I make hyper coaching. This is my brand. So I give certification in hyper coaching if you want them. That's all. What about, because this is the discussion of today, I just thought this morning, why coaching, why Romania is a perfect country for coaching. Because you understand, Romanian people are very attitutori, they already know everything. And if you try to get them advices, you don't have good results. I think you know. I mean, you say, you had to do this and this. No, lasciami pace. I know better than you. And this is a problem as consultant. But if you, using coaching techniques, put him to say what you want to say, is a perfect solution. I had very good results in this sense. Before I tried to act as a consultant, and you have to do this, and this. Oh no, lasciami pace. You know. No, io still my bin. Same, and with coaching, you bypass this kind of problem, and as him found the solution, yeah, perfect. This is a very, very good point for working with Romanian people and the Romanian manager, of course. Much more. Then what other kind to say? I don't like. Actually, I don't like this word. I don't like globalization. I don't like standardization. If I come to Romania, I want to eat mici and the ciorba de burta, no McDonald's. Fuck, it's impossible. The simple fact that you are here in Romania talking English, it gives me a sensation of cultural colonization, and I don't like it at all. I have a very poor English because I speak in every country. I speak the relative language. In French, I speak French. In Spanish, etc. And I like it. I was in some Romanian company where everyone is forced to speak English.
Bruno, yeah. I'm sorry that I'm going to stop you for
Okay. You're
so we
right.
can finish the round of introduction and we can have this wonderful debate about Romania. And as a first topic that
you know, I'm Italian. If I start to talk,
this is one part of the culture, you know. And I do realize that. I think that we also have.
I don't like microphone when I have to speak with my hands, you know. Okay.
No
Thank you so much.
It's one reason we are very happy to have Jimena among us. And I don't know how you see her, but in my screen, she's just in the middle.
Yeah.
Have all others around her, and she is a specialist in multicultural differences, and she is doing training in this area. And I'm sure she will be able not just give us some thoughts and experience and trips, but also she will be able to moderate us, because it was one of the things that we wanted to do, to have people from different cultures that will give us a clear picture of how each of culture behave in through us. So, Jimena, please.
Thank you, Vlad, and nice to meet you all. Also, I wanted to say hello to the participants that are watching. I know some of them are also coaches or getting into the field of coaching, so I'm very glad they're joining this conversation. Short about me, people say, where are you from? I always answer, I was born in Colombia, because there's a difference on where you're from, you're born. So we start there. When I left many years ago, Ecuador, the second country where I was living, I was working in communications. And I thought I was going for 1 or 2 years to Sweden, and I thought I will be working in communication. 20 years later, I'm in Romania. It's my 10th country. During this journey, I have passed through Moscow, Emirates, Stockholm, Berlin, Istanbul. And not only I was moving places, but I also had to reinvent myself, understand other ways of working, how you have to lead, you have to manage. And so since 15 years ago, I'm working as an intercultural trainer. I was very blessed to land in Romania. I see Romania as a place of opportunities, is a place that is in constant change, but that is what facilitates creation. That's the perfect ground to do things. And a testimony of that is the variety of the people that we have here in the panel. Petra guided me into joining the solution focus coaching approach, and really clicks with me and has been a tool that I have been using in my intercultural training. What's very nice, and I'm very happy, is though I work very corporate, explaining CEOs how to work in the places. My heart is now into sharing this in the educational field with the young people, with the ones who are going to be the future leaders, with the ones who are actually already living as global citizens. So thank you very much, and I'm really looking forward to hear more about you all.
Thank you, Jimena. So we moved in a different culture. From Croatia, we have Maya together with us, and I will let her tell us what are her hopes and thoughts about this event.
Thank you, Vlad. So my name is Maya. I'm from Croatia. I have lived in 5 different countries, and for the last 4 years I live in Bucharest in Romania. My background is in telecommunications when I was working in marketing, but now I work as a coach. I facilitate, I train, I work with individuals and teams. What I love about our setting today is also the variety. We all from different countries, but we share the place we live now, and we have different perspectives. And I love that we can share it with participants and broaden their perspectives. How is it for us to live here? And also maybe they can see it in a different way and discover something new, something you don't notice when it's everyday life. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And I'm looking forward to exchange thoughts and experiences with all of you.
Thank you very much, Maya. It was a pleasure to have you among us. And now we go in the northwest part of Romania, because it's not that all our guests are from different countries, but they are also from different places. Like Petra is somewhere in the middle of the country at her holiday house. Eduard is living in Oradea, one of the most nicest city in Romania.
Hello, Vlad. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and seeing how many Romanian people, as you said, want to go abroad. I thought I was one of the crazy ones that wanted to come to live in Romania. But in this opportunity, you have me this opportunity to share the screen with so many talented people that I feel that I'm not the only crazy one. There are other crazy people also, and I'm really pleased meeting all you here. So following a little bit what other introductions that preceded me said about the way they came to Romania. So I was working on I have engineering degree or background, so nothing farther away from coaching from my point of view. And I started, after I started working for IBM in Spain, I was all the time asking my managers, I would like to have an international experience. So it took few years to come, but so be careful what you request to the universe, because at the end it will come multiplied to you. So I was asking for just 1-2 years international experience to know other cultures, other countries. And finally I ended up being offered to be 1 year in Romania. And I have been 12 years in Romania. So that is more international or short international experience that I was looking for has become almost a lifelong professional and personal experience in Romania. So I'm really happy that that I came here, and well, we'll have, I think, more opportunities to talk about the details. But if I would not be happy to be here, for sure, I would not have been here for so long. So thank you very much for all of you, and let's share this event together. Thank you.
Thank you, Eduard. So, Christina, I think we are now ready to jump in the presentation. I saw a clue that I have to do some. Okay, here we are. One thing that we learned from preparing this journey, it was that we are in a lot of language differences, with one word that is actually the same in all countries, and that word is coaching. So this is not translated, and I'm used to teasing Christina because she's living in Germany, and I asked her why Germany has not a German word for coaching, because they used to put several words together, making one word to describe something from English. So, Christina, are you going further, or should I?
Well, Vlad, it was it was said that you can keep on talking about this one, but it's good. You made a nice intro talking about how come Germans don't have such a word, not yet, I would say. You know, that's a beautiful concept of saying not yet. And indeed, I think that we find a different kind of words of expressing, and I think it's interesting also to look at conversations and how they start, because mostly how they start is, I'll come back now to a different example from a culture that is French, and they say, you know, having a debate and having a complaint about something, it's a trait of intelligence, because you can debate on something. That's why French people have in the culture the complaint, as it's a form of showing the level of intelligence, as you want to have a conversation and an interaction with somebody. Find that as again a very beautiful thing. But that's what we see at the first layer. You know, you see exactly just the complaints, so they're complaining. But actually there's more underneath, and this is why we went back to this picture of the iceberg, as that's what you see, just the tip of the iceberg is what we assume that that's the story behind is just a complaint. But actually there's more to it. There's a lot more. And that's one thing that we discovered also by talking to all of you. And you said, you know, that's a lot more when it comes to talking about Romanian culture and Romanian cultural traits and all of these things that you also encountered in coaching. And a lot of them that are extremely positive. And we thought that it would be wonderful just to pause for a second and talk about those things. Talk about the things that you notice from all of your clients, conversations on the street. Doesn't need to be necessarily about somebody that it was your client, and think about what were the things that impressed you about the particular culture. anyone wants to start, gladly, you can just on your mic. I'm just going to stop sharing. So we have back all on the screen.
Christina, I have a word. I have a word that one of my best leaders was a fellow in Canada. He was a marketing VP, and when my boss left, he described him as being tireless. And I said, I like that word, tireless. And George was in fact tireless. He was a very hardworking, giving person. That's the word I use now. I borrowed that word from Tim, who was my VP, to describe Romanians. They are tireless. In fact, when I'm having discussions with fellow Canadians, I'll tell them, you know what, I would put you up anytime to my Romanian peers and they would kick your butt in terms of just showing pure energy and tenacity. So that's one of the things I notice. And when I see that, it's very, very motivating. It makes it easier for me. When I was leading teams here, but when I'm seeing this in coaching, it hasn't changed. It's always been there, and it's just a wonderful trait of the culture.
Thank you so much, Paul. That's a beautiful word, tireless. Wow. Any other things that come to your mind? Wonderful.
Something that impresses me again and again is something, an entrepreneurial spirit, what I'm facing here, which is different from Germany, where I'm coming from, because there everything is more settled. You don't need to develop so much yourself. And I like this, how people try out something. Of course, it's also in a way of a lack of possibilities which are outside, but there is this idea to try out something, put your heads together, go it with some friends and start a small business together. And that's something I really, really like. And that was, Bruno, you mentioned that also, you know, people coming up with these ideas and don't you want to do this with me? That's also what I experienced when I came in the 90s to Romania. And the second thing which I'm really impressed about is this interest for learning. When I came to Romania, I could speak English. That was my foreign language that I could, but I met people who speak not only one foreign language, they speak 10 foreign languages, 6 foreign languages. Yeah. And and that's not only the only thing. Their interest for learning, I think it's something that was in the culture, that was something that also helped people to survive in a way. At least my friends who are Romanians tell me that it was really important to read books because there was not so much else happening. And that is something I'm facing very often, this interest to really to learn more, to go deeper into that. And that's something I enjoy, the conversations that get out of that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we collected until now tireless, entrepreneurial spirit, interest for learning. That's a lot already that is being shown underneath this iceberg or inside, things that we don't notice from the first perspective. Any other things that you want to share?
Also add curiosity. I'm amazed how many questions I get to ask just saying I'm from Croatia, and people are really eager to know more. And I believe it builds nicely on what Petra said, is this eager to learn, to find out more. So it's very nice to be able to share. I love that, yeah. That part is really impressive.
Sorry.
Please.
No, just about that entrepreneurial mindset. I don't know if it's so politically correct to say, but this entrepreneurial spirit is not always used in the right way. Romanian people all the time have to find something different, something more comfortable. I understood from Discovery Channel, this is not a joke, that agriculture was invented in Romania. First location of agricultural was in Romania 10,000 years ago. And I thought that our Romanian people, it's too difficult to go us and there. Let's not to grow something here, just not to go in right and left to it. And this is very Romanian. What to say? There is always this kind of, I have to find something different. The normal way is difficult to accept. For this, I said this thing about coaching. So he finds the solution, because if you offer the normal solution, please note, stop. I'm talking about generation before people. Young people are as everywhere. I don't see too much difference today in Romanian young people, Italian young people, French young people. There is a melting pot. I don't like it. But Romanian from old generation, it was fantastic. If you see an old man with some tools can repair anything at home. They have a solution for everything. For example, still today in German, if you have a problem with the car, you call immediately some service. Romanian people try to repair it. This is a very Mediterranean way to solve things. We have a bad, and for this I understand the Romanian people, because we have every time problem with authority. If someone said me to do something, I want to do something different. And in this sense, entrepreneurial spirit can be daring, which is a problem sometimes.
Bruno, you know what you raised there, and I find it also beautiful to pick on this one, because what you raised in there is the topic of creativity and innovation. Yeah. And I think the concept of creativity and how much people in general try to, I don't know if it's necessarily we should go in the direction of discoveries or really patents, but I mean in the sense of having a dose of creativity allows you to come up with new ways of doing things, new ways of approaching ideas, new solutions, or actually new applications. So I think that's a beautiful, beautiful sense. And I would be curious also what else, you know, be curious also, I think we have
just
also...
to finish my what I want to say. I don't know if you read my article about robotizzare.
Mm-hmm.
You read it?
I read the beginning of it, yeah.
Okay, what's the problem? If you put creativity in a company, you destroy the company. This is the real problem. We have to come a balance, because for example, if in an orchestra, a classical orchestra, everyone is creative, Beethoven doesn't go out. You have to. This is a problem. If you want to express creativity in a structure, you destroy the structure. There is no solution.
I think it's about also reinventing, and I think it's about what is the scope or what's the ultimate goal of it. And I think creativity, it's a wonderful trait because it allows you to see things from a different perspective. And I think that's the same thing in organizations. It's about what do you want to have with that organization? What's the purpose of it? What's the overarching goal of it? And I would hope that you're fine with that, Bruno. But I would ask also Edward and Ximena and Pascal to share. Yes, please.
Dig in before we got deeper, because as an intercultural trainer, I think it's very important to make some distinctions. So I like that you show the iceberg, because it really shows on the top what we see, what's evident, like language.
Yeah.
Beneath, you have what shapes that. So many people say, in order to understand Romanians, I have to understand the language. And no, you will understand what they say. But in order to understand their mindset, you need to see what's below the iceberg. So yes, on the surface, you will see the food, and many people stop at that thinking this is culture. No, because actually we have differences on how we perceive food or eating together. How much time should be allocated, how much food shall we eat at work, alone, and so on. So for everything, there are very varieties. And when we're talking about the intercultural, there's no right or wrong ways. But in the example, for example, that Bruno mentioned about the car, what's beyond the behavior, what's below the behavior is what we trust. So do we trust the authority, the institution that will help us? Do we trust our friend who is there? It's just an observation. But I think it's true, again, as I said, that Romania presents some interesting points, both shaped by the culture of Romanians, that you can look into history to see that, but also by the moment. So as an intercultural trainer, I think what helps is that many companies have moved here for A, B, C, Z reasons. But that means that you have a melting pot. Romanians exposed to foreigners coming to work here, and foreigners understanding that when it's about learning about Romanian, it's not passive, but they also have to learn about themselves. So I always like to do this mirror where you say, punctuality is important. Why? Why do you think this is important? Where are you giving attention? What are you giving attention to? I saw from your comment that we are moving forward, so I didn't want to take further, but I just wanted to point this out. And as you see, in a very Latin way, I speak with my hands too.
You know, growing up in the finance function, one of the privileges you have is that you can be contrarian and have a different opinion. So I'm going to use that privilege and be a little contrarian here. I'm very, very careful and very cautious and wary about painting everybody with the same brush. You know, so whilst I completely agree that I have met many Romanians who are enterprising, who are friendly, who are curious and everything else, I'm sure the opposite is also true. So to paint people with the same brush, especially using only one lens, which is the lens of their nationality, is quite a dangerous thing to do. And I think, as Jimena said, there is a lot more that lies underneath, which needs further exploration. And you need to go well beyond their nationality to understand that. So often we try and stereotype people, and stereotyping positively or negatively is equally wrong, in my opinion. We try and stereotype people to make it simple for ourselves. But people are not that simple. Culture is an incredibly complex construct, and we should not diminish the construct of culture by viewing it only through the national lens.
Well, I think I was listening to all of you, and I think it came to my mind this duality that I have seen in the Romanian culture. On one hand, I see the Romanian culture very respectful and protective of traditions. So this, for me, as Jimena was saying, this for me is at the bottom of the iceberg, no? The supporting of everything that is going up. So really protective and respecting of the old tradition. I never saw, for example, people, I cannot imagine people in Spain wearing the traditional dress one Sunday morning on the streets. It's only just reserved for once a year, and that's it. So in Romania, you see this very, very often. But at the same time, respecting the tradition, but at the same time, embrace change. And they embrace change of something new that will improve what the situation where it is, but all the time respecting the traditions. I don't see a breakage here. So embracing something new means what some of you commented, no? Curiosity, creativity, opportunity. I understood from Bruno also kind of smekerash, no? But this is what comes at the top of the iceberg. But this is supported, I have seen very strongly by the traditions that everybody, or if not, must have, if we cannot paint everybody with the same brush. But when I say everybody, is from my point of view, the majority of the population is really respectful and based everything on what they do on the traditions.
Just about the tradition, I think it's worth to say, of course, every kind of generalization is wrong by definition. We all agree on this. But there are some traits about tradition. I remember some years ago, I did a team building somewhere in the country, I don't remember. And there was a company with the clerk of everywhere from Romania, from north, south, okay, about 100 people. And after the team building, after the dinner, someone said, "Hai sa facciamo bracciovanca." I didn't know what it is. And every one of them, without knew with the other, they never met before, everyone knew exactly what to do. It was fantastic to see 100 people with no repetition just start dancing in a perfect way. It's something impossible for Italian people of today, and so young people. There is moreover a kind of strange, exasperate sometimes patriotism. You have to talk very carefully about the country, because they all the time between them, Romania is bad, they don't like police. But if you, as a foreigner, try to say something bad, go to your home if you don't like it here. You have to be very careful to complain something about Romania. But the transition is a very important trait. I never say something so in other countries, maybe in Russia. Just to confirm what Edouard said.
Thank you, Bruno. So, moving further in our prep discussion, Basav came with a very interesting term, which is cultural agnostic perspective, and somehow is connected this with what he said earlier, that you cannot use the same brush for every person. The big question is, are we able to put aside, and here I have a problem, a linguistic problem, a linguistic issue, how to use, what to use besides cultural, because if I put cultural baggage, it's already a negative perspective, in my opinion. If I put cultural heritage, then it's a positive one. And I try to think in English to one neutral word that can help me, and I already see Jimena, it's jumping to help me. And this is the question for each of you. Is it possible to put aside all our culture and be neutral in front of others, in front of our clients? Is it possible to see only the person, which I fully agree with Basav? This is the aim, to see the person and not all his background in his back. So, Jimena, if you want to start to help me with a neutral word besides
I think Paul
culture.
has something.
Can I make a suggestion? Why don't we let Basav explain the word culture agnostic? I mean, the definition is probably not what I think Basav in mind, or if it did, but I mean, it'd be good for all of us to get clarity, and especially our audience. So Basav, why don't you give us a bit more insight on what you meant by that, please?
Yes, thank you, Paul. I felt I needed to clarify that, because when I mentioned it in our conversation the last time, it was specifically in the context of the national culture, right? So I think I referred to this in my earlier thing as well, that culture is a complex construct. And you cannot, or you can, I suppose, but it's dangerous to look through only one lens when you decide somebody's culture. Certainly, you know, other than nationality, you have many other things. You have upbringing, you have generation, you have gender, you have many other things which feed into what makes somebody culturally behave in a certain way. As an executive coach, the other extremely important thing that feeds into culture is the organization you work for. You know, so to me, if I'm coaching somebody in organization A, B, and C, it would surprise me much less to find a Romanian and a British guy sharing the same values and attitudes within that organization than you would otherwise expect if you only saw that through the nationality lens. And that's what I meant by being culturally agnostic, that especially in the world of corporations, it is very important to keep the concept of cultural agnosticism in mind when you're using only the lens of nationality to construct your culture, you know, or the cultural fit that you're constructing for your client. So it is not culture in general. Of course, culture is important, and of course we should be sensitive to culture. And of course, nationality feeds into that culture to a degree. To what degree depends on understanding the person. And that's what I mean.
Thank you, Basaf. So in chat, Jimena already put a definition of the culture. And indeed, I also see the culture from a lot of lenses. So Jimena, you want to add more on this?
I think what's happening here is what has been happening, which is many people say, what's the difference between culture, personality, experience, language, education? And they all make the pot of what's one person. So in the intercultural field, we call it cultural profile. So then there's no positive or negative connotation. And a cultural profile can be of a country, it can be of a person, or it can be also of a company. So many times, for example, when I'm working, I have to compare 3 cultural profiles, the one of the person I'm working with, that might have had initially in the career a tendency to behave similar to the culture where they grow, but through international experience have moved from that tendency. The corporate culture, because you might have an American company or company from the United States working in Romania, so you already have a corporate culture, and then you have the local culture. In our case, to avoid having this weight, or as you say, Vlad, not to have the word luggage or baggage or heritage, what we call is dimensions. So we just see how a culture perceives power. What's power? How do you get power? How do you use your power? And with that, we see where the person is, or the culture, or the company, and we just try to combine it. So I think when Basaf mentioned the agnostic part, I just understood in this sense that not to stay in the colorful part of what's perceived as culture, but to go deeper into mindsets. The quote that I put there is my personal favorite, and Hofstede is one of the ones who started creating this, where shall we look? So let me give you a simple example. When I just came to Romania, many people say, how would you train people to come and work in Romania if you're already here only 6 months? Because you have these dimensions, you have these parameters, so you know what to look. Who gets to park closer to the entrance of the building where you work? The boss, the one who arrives first, or the one who arrives late? Already making that decision, you're telling me what kind of power structure this place, culture, or so on has. So this is how we move along. But I know, Vlad, you have made a question, if how culture will impact that people look coaching, and if we as coaches can get rid of our luggage, our profile, our tendencies, the way we see. What I have seen in fellow coaches that are here, because I have worked with them, is that you have to really is about the person you're coaching, and you have to come with your eyes as open and as blank. But it's true that in different cultures, people might feel that it's okay to look for a coach or not. So yeah, there is a difference. Some cultures is more open, that if you need something, you go to a specialist, while others might not see immediately the reason to look for a coach. So I leave it there. I saw some of you nodding when I was speaking, so I would really like to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Jimena. Actually, hearing you, I want to refine a bit the question and use the opportunity to have so many people with great coaching experience. Based on our previous talk, it seemed somehow easier to put aside preconceptions. And I'm not sure it is real easy. And I would like to hear from all of you, how do you prepare and what is your experience? Because in coaching, it's mostly about awareness and awareness about what you exaggerate based on your culture or what you are not conscious about your culture. And how have you seen this in your interactions with people from Romania or with people from other countries, and how you handle this, let's say, cultural encounter within coaching or mentoring relationship?
I think I've got an answer to what Vlad mentioned on, and I really like what Basav talked about, not looking it through one lens. We're all in this panel as coaches, we have different cultures, and that was the fun part of getting together. And if the coaches that are listening to us don't have that kind of experience, it's not a problem, right? Because and I like what Jimena said, is you got to get to develop an interest to understand a bit more behind the cultures or what is not seen. What I've noticed is two things, is that when I was leading people here and when I'm coaching them, I can tell within about 5 minutes if they've worked abroad. So Romanians have worked abroad. It has been very good for them to understand, because they were in a very difficult environment. They had to sort of survive in some ways or one form or another. And when they come back to Romania, I think they're a lot better equipped to handle the job. And the second thing I notice is that when coaching discussions come on board, and this will appeal to the rest of the coaches listening, is that what I've found is not so much the eternal knowledge of, you know, the Brits are like this or the French are like that. I will question. I'll say, well, if the person is having a bit of difficulty understanding the behavior of someone who's not Romanian, I will know now what to ask as questions, and for them to come up with their own rationale as to the tendencies. And it's not a guaranteed rule that the French will answer in this way and the Brits are going to be this way. But what I do bring is, when they think they've understood the person because of the culture, I say, think again. Maybe there's something more than just their own culture which is affecting their behavior at work. And the clients usually walk back going, well, speaking with Paul, is that he didn't tell me the Brits are always like this, but maybe there's a bit of that. But more importantly, let me try and understand that culture a bit better. Let me try and speak to a few people who've worked with Brits or the French to see how they've noticed working and optimizing a relationship. And the spin there is a lot more positive on understanding that culture more and working more with that culture, and to get a benefit, and of course sharing that benefit later on.
Paul, you know what, I would just pause right now for a second, because what you just said fits wonderful with one of the questions that is in the chat, and that is, should a foreign organization look for cultural differences from the Romanian client's colleagues and use it as an advantage, or integrate and change their working habits?
Well, what I like about what Jimena said earlier, she was right on. There's a lot more companies coming to Romania. They have to understand Romanians, and some of us give trainings on how to do that. But I think that's a wonderful opportunity. Is it a competitive advantage? I think from a Romanian client point of view, the more they understand and the more appetite and the willingness to understand different cultures, that will become, in the next 10 or 20 years, another competitive differentiator for that person as a leader, and that person to be a lot more agile and versatile. Whereas if you sort of get too hung up on why the French are like this or why the English are like that, and I don't like working with this culture, that's pessimistic. That's not going to help anybody. And I know, and I'm still, I mean, although I've been here for almost 15 years, at times, I mean, I love living here, and my soul is Romanian, but at times I also remember that I'm still a guest here, and therefore I have to respect that as being a guest by respecting what you know, what's around me, how the people react, and not so much, you know, being confused as to why it is such, but understanding why it is such. And I think it's, to answer your question, Christine, I think the more we all get to understand and be more patient and more open to cultures, it's going to help us as leaders.
True, and I see Bastaving already getting closer to the laptop trying to say something, and I saw some Petra.
I think Petra raised her hand, and she hasn't spoken in a while, so I'll let Petra go.
I would like to make a provoking statement. I think as a coach, it doesn't matter with what culture you're working. You don't have to know anything about the culture. And that might be a little bit provoking, but I think the opposite of a coach is he's not a consultant. As a consultant, I have to be very careful what kind of proposals I make, what I think, what would be the solution. As a coach, I don't need to do that. I would even say I must not do that. I'm creating a space for the other person to think, to explore, to discover what is my way to deal with the situation which I want to change. And my role as a coach is really to create this thinking space and to help the person to discover their own solutions. And I think that it's even so more important now that we're working in a more globalized world. That's just a fact. We might like it or not. But it's a different world where we're living now. I'm here in the middle of the mountains, in Carpathian Mountains in Romania. And here in this village, my neighbor, he's a farmer, and he works 3 months in the summer. He works in Norway. And then he's here 3 months with his family, and then he goes back to Norway. This is globalization today. It ended up in the small villages in Romania. I might like it or not. And therefore, we're getting in touch with people. They have a different experience, a different background, which I cannot even imagine what they went through. And when I really go with this more curiosity, approaching people to see, how do you see the world? What is something that you would like to achieve? What is something what would be a better world, a better situation in your perspective? And how do you think you can achieve it? And I help them to get more clear about what do they actually want and how can they get there. That's what I understand is my role as a coach. Then it is this, I assume less. And when I recognize I have these assumptions popping up, I take a deep breath and just see that they pass away. And I really think we need more of these skills, especially that people now working with different cultures in companies, even in villages. I mean, there are foreigners living here in this village from England and from the States. They decided to move here. So we need to being more curious about the other person instead of saying, you're from Romania, that's the way how you are, I know now. And but really be open. And I think the coaching skills that we all have developed in asking questions, listening, whatever we are doing, that helps. And I think we need more of these skills really in daily life, not only for some experts who know how to ask questions and to listen, really listen, but that there is more really also in schools, in education, that is more a different way of communication is taught that helps people to connect more with one another.
I just to say a thing, because I think that there is a problem that it's difficult to face it. As said Basav, any generalization is wrong. But what we forget to say is that each of us has different level. About Indians, Gustave Le Bon, I think you know, 100 years ago wrote a fantastic book, was Psychology of Fools. And he talked about Indian people that had studied in London. And they jump between different levels with their superstition, with their culture, old culture, and the new. They don't see any conflict. I see in my experience that I was everywhere. I speak 5 languages. I worked in Asia, but sometimes when I don't want, my Italian nature got out. So we have all different level. Then I think we all are trained to fit in today business. We all try to be in American way because this is necessary. But probably, and this kind of preconception is from the other. If I work with someone different, I don't understand it. That, but I try to fit. I put goodwill, but more often that I want, my deep nature come out, and I think this is for everyone. So what about culture? Is a background. You try to get rid of it, but sometimes is go out and bypass your train. And I think that we have to keep in place this aspect. So not about preconception. I agree completely with Petra in theoretical way, but in fact you speak with someone in Romania, and then after a good talk, a good speech, a good understanding, it's come out the Romanian. You understand?
Yeah.
And this
What
is
is
so.
that?
What is that? I don't want to. I know what I said.
Yeah.
Right.
I think this is coming the research, which is important, because listening to Paul, immediately I remember that couple of our Romanians living in other countries told us that they feel in between two worlds. They that feel exactly in Paul's word, get in that country. Even they live there for a longer time. On the other hand, what you said, Bruno, it's true. Theoretically, sometimes theoretically it's very simple. Not always. It's in practical. It's very easy. But I also get myself, like Petra said, taking a deep breath and thinking about what I'm thinking. And also supervision is very important because it's bringing a different lens above of what we are doing. And this is important also, and I'm glad we have Edward together with us, because he is working in corporation, and there is more complicated because a coach could have other hats as a manager or some company objectives, and it's not easy to interact with the coaches.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe Edward can give some thoughts as well.
Well, regarding to exactly to what you said, Vlad, I have been working in Romania for 10 years, working for a Canadian company, and I'm Spanish, and my top management were Italian. So you can imagine the mix of the, and my team was Romanian. So you can imagine the mix of culture and how you can, you have to navigate through all of this environment. I would like to just make a comment on what Petra said, that I subscribe what you said, Petra, but just to try to see more specific in Romania, about Romania. So you said that the work of a coach is to see how the client see the world. And one of the ways the client see the world is his limiting beliefs, which his limiting beliefs they are. And I have found, not in few cases, I would say in many cases, talking about Romania now, there is one limiting belief related to culture that is negative related to the current culture. So I explain myself. So I have in many cases seen, oh, in Romania this happens because the school is that and is very bad. It happens because in the communist time this happened and the leaders were not developed. this happened because in the villages, blah, blah. So all the time is a negative or limiting belief. And when you are coaching somebody, this comes as an excuse, kind of saying, because the school system, the university is not very good, we are in this situation now. So everything is negative about where they are today compared to some external consequence that is related to the culture where they developed. Just as a funny ending, I was one day discussing with a few people about the universal laws. So are there universal laws that we all have to abide? And one client said, "I'm sorry, Edward, the universal laws don't work in Romania." So this is about the negative approach about that in Romania there are many things working bad or not working properly like abroad. So that's why we are where we are. And sometimes I don't see, knowing other countries, I don't see this 100% true.
Sorry, can I say one thing? Because it's important. I think that this is a real problem. I don't know if is it a cultural one, but still today, Romanian people show a kind of arrogance, but still suffer of inferiority complex about with Occident. I remember my first coaching 30 years ago. I was in Romania. I needed some service to find an apartment, and I talked with young people, 20 years so, an engineer that worked for Turkish, and I saw that these young people made everything in the agency, and at the evening the Turkish comes and took all the money. And I asked, why don't you open your company? Because you do all the job. And he answered me, because I'm Romanian. Yes, so what? So I improvised a kind of coaching session. I didn't know the social. And this guy, after a week, opened his company. We are still today friends. Today he has 50 years. But I remember this answer, I can't because I'm Romanian. Why not? And he said, yeah, why not? It was a turning point for him, but for me also. And I see today this kind of attitude. I don't know if in your experience. In spite of all MBA, in spite of everything, they try to simulate American. They don't have are pro. It's strange. It's strange, this kind of attitude. But I think you find it.
If you allow me now for a second I'm going back to summarize, because I find it very interesting, the entire conversation, and I feel like we're going into different directions. And I think there are actually a couple of topics right now getting mixed, and that's beautiful because everyone can contribute. And I find it interesting to just make sure that we are aware of them. And I think this links to what Petra, what you were saying. Yes, indeed, there's, like Bruno saying, these layers that are within us that you can move from a different culture to another, not culture, but from one identity to another. Probably identity, Ximena, I hope that I'm right when I'm saying probably identity is a better word. And I think we're moving from one identity to another because also we're moving from an identity of a coach to an identity of basically a mother or a wife or any kind of other identity that you take during the day, but you're moving between these identities. And these are these layers that are inside us. And like Petra, you were saying, well, when I'm in this layer of coach, I should just be only in that layer and leave everything aside. And that's one discussion that just evolves, and that's beautiful to say, yes, that's how we should be. We should just be there without looking and thinking, oh, they might be now responding that to my questions because of being Romanian or being any other culture or any other identity. And I just should be there observing and not necessarily judgmental or absorbing or taking any conclusions. And I think that's where we started. We started by having the conversation of saying, how can we just be in that identity of a coach without looking at the person in front of us and making any kind of assumptions? And that conversation started from this direction of how do we maintain our identity there and not fluctuate between them. And I find it beautiful how it evolved by looking at how organizations perceive all of these identities that we bring on board, cultural or any other kind of things that we bring on board in an organization that comes from a different country in Romania. And I think then it moves also to a third component, that it's actually talking about how do we turn these assumptions or perceptions, like you were saying, Edward. Yes, and I'm doing those things because of something that happened, and those are my limiting beliefs. How do we turn these negative assumptions or perceptions into a positive way of moving forward? I think there are three things that are now, kind of like connected, but in the same time mixing themselves. And I would still love to hear more opinions of this one, because there was a question, also the question in the chat saying, how does a corporation, and there are more questions in how do we integrate these components? And I think that would be also beautiful to just get your opinions also on the initial point of how do I maintain myself as a coach in this layer of without any assumptions, without anything. And I think that's how I perceive this idea of agnostic, of saying I don't have any assumptions, I don't have anything, I don't look at anything else, but I'm just being here as a coach. I'm listening to you as my coachee, and I just want to allow you this space of exploration without making any kind of assumptions. Maya, please.
Thank you. So for me, looking from the coaching perspective, the hardest thing wasn't to learn how to be coach and coaching skills. The hardest thing was to unlearn and to let go of all my assumptions, biases, my opinions, and just be there for the client, be present. And what really helped me is to hold the client as naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, meaning they are not broken, that they have all the resources, they're maybe just being a bit stuck, and I'm there to help them and empower them to find their own answers. And yes, sometimes the hardest thing in listening to others is that in the same time while you listen, you have this inner voice of your own telling you some things and thinking in advance. So that makes it a bit difficult to deal with that, but just simple mindfulness exercises, simple as breathing, as feeling the chair, feeling the floor underneath you, really helps to stay present and to stay there with the client. So that's really what makes the difference. And the culture doesn't matter, really. Doesn't matter on individual level, corporate or national. I agree with Petra there.
Can I just build on what Petra said to start the conversation? I completely agree that as coaches, we are there to give them the space to think, right? And to create their own solutions. And it is very important in that engagement for us not to have preconceived notions of who the client is. And Edward raised this issue of limiting beliefs. The first people who should drop their limiting beliefs are coaches. Forget about the coachees, right? Because we all, as human beings, tend to have limiting beliefs of some kind. And if we don't learn to let go of them ourselves, how can we ever expect in our engagement to help the coachee to let go of theirs? Now, that being said, I think in order for people to be allowed to think and express themselves and come up with a solution, as a coach, you need to understand them too, so that you create an appropriate platform for them to express themselves. And that process of understanding them more is what I would define as their culture. So I think culture is a perfectly good word, by the way, Christina, right? And identity is too. But it all depends on how you define these words. You know, if culture is going to be Romanian, then that is not an adequate definition. I'm sorry. Right? But if culture is going to be everything that makes the person who they are, how they think, how they behave, then that is a perfectly good word. And it is our job as coaches to understand that in order to create exactly the platform that Petra speaks about. So yes, of course, we need to have that agnostic position, as you said. And it is, by the way, I noticed your definition, and yes, the classical agnostic definition involves God, but we don't want to go there. But in common parlance, it's really indifference. You know, you should be indifferent to your own preconceived notions about who these people are. And we will always have experiences, and it is natural to assume that these experiences are a result of because a Romanian is like this or because an Indian is like that. But that is our limiting belief. We cannot conflate our experience, which is anecdotal, to be evidence. That is not evidence. Our experience is not evidence. You know, and in order to theorize about something, you need evidence. And as individuals, we just don't have it.
True. That's beautiful summary, Basav. And I think just what I take as a substance from what you said is it's not only about those limiting beliefs of the person in front of us, but it's also the limiting beliefs about ourselves. So there's both positions in the game, also here and also here. What is it that we should make sure that we leave aside or overcome or approach them differently depending on what is needed? I saw also, Ximena, you were very attentive at the way Basav was talking about how do you put a notion behind culture and how do you kind of like try to explain how they should be perceived. And I'm wondering if that was something that came to your mind.
No, I was just nodding because it's very nice to hear. So as I said, culture sometimes have this first glimpse to give people what is very evident to the eye, and many times people will stay there. So I was very glad to hear from Basav this other way of saying, well, if we're going to use this word to define just what someone is, then be it. And as coaches, just to go with our eyes and heart open, in the sense we're going there to listen. I was just remembering with Petra, we did once one exercise that it was very interesting because I can't remember the details, but it was something like Petra will coach someone that was speaking in a language that she wouldn't understand. And that was the purpose of the exercise, and how she will have to just pose the questions and ask the person to place themselves within different areas and guide them, even when she was unable to understand the words that have been said. And that was a very interesting way of doing what I can't remember, I think Edward or Paul said, this of just listening, being there, putting ourselves in the situation. Yes, bringing all ourselves, because when we come to the place with all of us. But as Maya said, I think we have to unlearn so much, and we have to come as transparent as possible to really let the process of coaching happen. So that was I was connecting the dots, and I love when this happens. So thank you.
I would add to that one what Owen wrote in the chat, saying not knowing during the interaction. So this concept of not knowing, it is a beautiful way of summarizing it also. If that's fine with everyone, I would actually go back to the set. I saw three components in the conversation before, and that was one of them. The other
Before
thing was
the resume, can I say one thing?
Yes,
because
Bruno, please.
This is just I don't like too much in the new way of coaching. I understand this metaphysical way of presence, of unicity, or get rid of any preconception. But me as doctor, I know that everyone has a liver on the right, a stomach in the center, and brain here. This is not a limiting belief. This is a fact. And I know that an African people is black and a Norwegian is blonde. And I have to, I can't open everyone just to see if the liver is in the right. I understand it is not a preconception, it's not a limiting belief. Of course, on this base, I see the unicity, but I can't really start again from zero without keeping count this kind of information. It's a shortcut, useful, not a limiting belief. This is my point.
Bruno, maybe the issue is that whilst it is true that a Norwegian is blonde, is that a predictor of any behavior? That is the issue. It doesn't matter if they're blonde.
It is, because if I need a worker in the sun, I ask to a Nigerian, no, not to a Norwegian, because he had a barn, and the African people is better. You understand?
I will have to disagree on this one, because I think it's reducing things into, like, I see your point, but I think from where I see it is reducing things into this very thing, and then there wouldn't be a purpose of going deeper or coaching or interacting, because we're reducing people to, as I say, it's a very different thing to say where you're born to where you come from, or where have you been. I think there are three different questions.
Yeah, Ximena, sorry, you worked in Ecuador. You know perfectly that if I need someone for a job at I need Indios, because they have a different kind of cardiovascular system. They are very adaptable. If I go 5,000 meters, I go down because I have vertigo. Okay, and they are fit. And this is a part of them. It's not a preconception, it's a constatation. And
Bruno,
sometimes...
Bruno, I'm going to take your comment and your observation as a beautiful way of saying we should be mindful of everyone's opinions and everyone's beliefs. And I think that what Basav said, in the sense of, yes, those things are in the form of facts, but what is the matter, or what is the impact of it? What's behind that? Where do we want to get with that thing, if that's just the fact that we see in front of us, but how do we look behind it? How do we try to uncover what's behind that first mountain, that second mountain, what's actually lying ahead? And I think that's a question also in general for coaching, of how do we also perceive this continuously keeping this curiosity and this mindset of let's dig further and see what's behind. You know what I would say in this moment also, Bruno, maybe it would be also a useful thing to consider. I think it would be a beautiful opportunity for the entire community, coaching culture, however you want to express it, again coming down to words, whatever words you want to use, but it might be a wonderful debate if you want to take upon these different perceptions or different opinions about coaching. And I think that would be another beautiful conversation to generate from our interaction today, and say, let's take this one out and let's actually have a conversation on how do we address coaching, what do we understand coaching is, how do you draw it on this continuum from directive or non-directive, of allowing space for that conversation to exist or generating the conversation. So I think this entire, I would say it actually debate upon how coaching has evolved and what it is and where should it go. I would just take this one and I would make the invitation to everyone and say, let's have a conversation on this one. Might be very useful to put openly different opinions and see how we can constructively look what's behind it. Keep that curiosity in mind and the need to understand more about the position of each of everyone at the table, and figure out what's behind it and what can we take further. So if that's one thing that emerged from the conversation today, is exactly this need to talk deeper. I would still come back to, especially to the fact that there are a couple of things in the chat or in the Q&A, and I would really love to we said everyone has a chance to ask questions, like to actually enable that one. And there's one question that was raised is into the context of so-called globalization, how hard is it for the individual and how recommended is to maintain the particularities of your own country? And if that's fine with you, Ximena, I would say I would please ask you to contribute on this one at the beginning, and then see what else anyone has to add on this one.
So I'm reading, it says, how recommend from integration perspective what a corporation is looking for is to maintain the particularities of your own country. I'm afraid I'm not understanding the question fully, so maybe I will wait for others to answer and see where it goes, because I'm having some thoughts, but I'm not clear into what it means.
I can tell you what is my understanding out of it, and whoever raised the question, I would ask Ana Maria. I see that Ana Maria, maybe it would be useful if you can write a bit more about it so we fully understand it. But my understanding is mostly in the direction is how hard is it for an individual to maintain those particularities, to maintain that culture, if you want to put it, once you are encountered or you are surrounded, surrounded, I would use as a word, by other cultures. That would be my understanding of Ana Maria's question, and I think she's hopefully she's going to write a bit more.
I can add on this question with two kind of examples. One is from corporation, and I bet all the people who used to work with corporation, it happened many times when I do training to have new people in that corporation. And even they physically are within the new corporation, mentally, they are still in the old one. And they used to say, in my company, we used to do, and I say, hello, you are now in a different company, you are not anymore in that company. And this is very interesting situation, because I keep in my mind the example Petra did with the person from her village who is going in Norwegia and coming back. And I see this moving from country to country. And it's interesting that going in a different country, many people behave differently than how they behave when they are back. And I think these two examples have much to do with Ana Maria question. So you can add on these two examples from your experience.
I wonder if I'm allowed to share one slide.
Yeah, you are. You should be allowed.
So let me see if I can do this. I think, okay, I'm playing with fire here, so let me see if I can do it.
Okay.
So I don't know if you could see this.
Yeah.
Well, so through my journeys, I'm always going to IKEA in different countries and see how it starts. So I have been in IKEA from Sweden and see everything. And I was surprised the first time I went to, I think, actually it was here in Romania, that in the lunch area, they had to write why you're supposed to take your own tray. Well, for example, in Sweden, you don't have that. People just do it. So in both places, you do have to take your tray, but in one of them, you have to write why. I also remember, for example, in Dubai, it was very hard to tell people that they had to fetch the things themselves. And they were always looking to have someone to do that for them. The picture you see here is on the left side, you have the rules on how you can go into the playground area in IKEA. And it says you must have socks. So I remember I have been there, my kids didn't have socks, and I just turn around and say, okay, it's not happening. But the two people that you see here on the right side, these are two parents. they're not together. So there's a dad with the son and a mom with the son. And here's where the local culture. So the person on the left, he went for one of the first things that I've noticed in Romania related to rules. So he went and said to the lady, come on, I already told my kid, can you not make an exception, and so on. The lady on the right went on the other way, which is, who made these rules? So for me, it was beautiful to observe, as you were saying, how can we transmit corporate cultures when you have a local culture that is different? And I know that the lady who was in the front desk, this employee who is Romanian, who has her own cultural profile, had to give an answer. So now the real question is she giving an answer because she understands and incorporates what the rules and might make to an organization, or she's just doing it because she was told to? And I think this is the bigger issue when you are working internationally, which is how can you make them understand what happens if there's conflict in this? But most of the time, I suggest that there should be bridging and say, okay, we believe rules are important because we think it makes life easier. But you also have to learn to the other side to say, no, rules are not good. Everyone who wakes up and is in power will do it. So I just wanted to, I hope I answered the question, which is how to integrate the corporate culture with the local culture, how to make people interiorize. And many times when you're coaching, you will have to coach someone that is going through difficulty. But again, there's a difference between the training and a coaching. And I go back to the status of come with your eyes and mind open.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's a beautiful example also of these differences between everyone and about what's happening in different countries, even if it's the same, in theory, the same thing. It's the same organization, but it acts and is perceived differently everywhere. I'm trying to be also mindful of the time that we have. I know that we had one more topic that we wanted to launch in the discussion and go, but we have 15 minutes left. And there was one, another suggestion from the chat that was like, if you would be willing to describe Romania with just 3 words, what would those 3 words be? And it would be wonderful if we could raise that one also to all of you and say, so what would be those 3 words that you would pick? See everyone thinking deeply.
I can start. So,
please, Maya.
Open, curious, ambitious.
Wonderful.
This is Romania or Romanians? What was the question?
Wonderful observation, Basab. True. Now I would leave it to, what do you want to share?
No, I think we all have a very good reason for staying on, right? I mean, that in itself is a huge testimony. So to me, the Romanians that I have met have come across as extremely friendly, right? Which has made the decision to stay on easier. Romania as a country is stunningly beautiful, which makes staying here and visiting places incredibly exciting. And I think I agree with Maya that people are curious and hungry to succeed.
Beautiful. Thank you. And it's like both, actually both now, Romania and Romanians. Thank you. Any other 3 words or a bit more?
Yeah, I'm hesitating to describe Romania in 3 words. I'm not going to do that. But what I'm going to do, happy to share what are 3 reasons why I'm living in this country. And one is this still existing, very pure nature, which we not having in the Western Europe anymore, with this richness of plants and animals, wild animals, which disappeared already. And that's something I really think we should have to protect here. The other one, I enjoy the Romanian hospitality. There's a big heart that I feel with people, and openness, yes, willingness to share. And what I said at the beginning, I really like this curiosity, this openness, this learning, and out of this there's this creativity that comes out of that. That's what I enjoy in the conversation I have, and also in the collaborations I have with colleagues and with clients.
If I had to say something about Romania, that just a generalization, exaggerate one, but I think they are teenager. This is the one word that I think. I mean, a lot of creativity. They are young. We in Italy, in Germany, I think the same. We are old people. You look everywhere. You see senior people. You see aged, and Romania is made from young. And the head, the mindset is young, with the pretension, with arrogance, fear, a kind of thing that are typical of adolescent, you know, even in aged people. I mean, grandomania romanesca, you know. I mean, big plan for everything. In the same time, very scared of anything. I think as teenager, this is, if I want to understand some behavior, Romanian behavior, I think it's a guy of 18 years old with all the creativity, all the enthusiasm, and all the problem they know. This is my experience. One word, a teenager.
That's so wonderful. Yeah, that's summarizing in the sense of saying, how would you perceive and the age or the maturity level of the culture or of the generation, maybe, because I think that has an impact also. How does everything fluctuate? But those are, I take the positive out of that teenager. I take the positive out of that desire to live and to continue to provide something of benefit, of a positive
this
impact.
is what we're talking about.
Thank you, Bruno.
Our young people in Italy, they don't make a plan. They all they desire is to have a job. Now we have the government give money to everyone just to stay on the canapé, and this is terrible. And this is the dream, Italian dream today, to have to be paid to do nothing. It's terrible. I don't like it. In Romania, there is maybe in strange way. I don't want to say too much, but at least there is creativity, there is ambition. We are all say the same thing. This is
Thank
open.
you.
This is nu întâmplător, e țara tuturor posibilităților.
Thank you.
Well, I see, Bruno, how difficult it is for us Latins to, when they say 3 words, to be 3 words. It's really, really difficult. Right?
Yeah.
Really difficult. So in my case, I would, I have one word that is common, I think, with Petra, is hospitality. I think you said the hospitality, one of the words. The other one would be tradition, and the other one would be opportunity. So they are looking for opportunities to improve themselves, open-minded to grab any new idea that could bring them a step forward. So these are my 3 words. I think Florin wrote that in the chat.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Ximena or Paul?
I have 3 words. I'm going to borrow Bashav's beautiful, and it applies to both the people and the country. I mean, it's staggering. As a foreigner, I notice it probably more than the people here, and they're actually quite surprised when I keep repeating that. I'm going to borrow Edward's word of opportunity. I think the opportunity in this country is amazing, and I think Petra mentioned that earlier. In Canada, things are going well. In Germany, things are going well, but the exponential opportunity in this country is part of why I came here, because I was able to notice it. Like a lot of my peers on the call have lived in many countries, so I was able to make that distinction. And the word I like is the third word is serene. It is in Rizhnav. When I go there, my jaw drops. I look at the mountainside and I'm going, this place is serene. And that's a very, I don't use that word very many places, but that's what makes, this is why I find this place is such a wonderful place to be.
Thank you. Ximena, I've noticed that you wrote already typed in the chat a couple of words. Do you also want to add on those words a bit?
Well, I like welcoming, and I like that in Romania it's actually primitor, which is like receiving.
Mm-hmm.
There's though the word will be that one. It's important to see what it says. And I like this concept of dor de rost. I think it really encapsulates this Romanian transcendence and deeper layers of things. And for me, I've been honored to be here and discover these deeper layers of things. And it's not a word, but I like the sense that they have a life after work.
It is very deep, even for Romanians.
Thank you so much for sharing those beautiful things. And I think that was it was a warm shower for sure, because there's always nice to hear what are also the things that maybe are not always said, and maybe we don't have them on the top of our minds, but those positive things and those positive traits and those wonderful things that I think helps us also to continue to be willing to fight for them, and for not the word fight should not be perceived in the sense of a negative approach, but in the sense of saying being willing to share them and explain to people how they are and where can they be noticed. And I think exactly fits wonderful with the concept of curiosity, because we keep on being curious about them, we'll keep on noticing them more and more. And I think that's also a beautiful way of saying that's what we do also in coaching, right? We keep on trying to notice what are the things that should be there, seen, should be noticed, and should be kept as resources in mind. We still have about 5 minutes, and after that I know that some of you need to leave also, and I will also after that see how I can get everyone on the screen. Any kind of last things that you want to add? Any kind of last, I'm not going to say last words, because it sounds so dramatic, and Edward, you're right, with a couple of words it's going to be difficult
for Bruno. We'll have a problem for Bruno.
But any kind of words, things, ideas that you still want to add, that you want to leave, considering that we started with, how was it? What was it that we all wanted to have was a wonderful conversation, and there was broad magic of coaching, right? There was a lot of energy and a broader picture. Those were the things that some of you mentioned at the beginning. So I'd be curious to see how are we in those terms.
Are you talking to me?
To everyone, whoever wants to add anything.
Well, as if Romanian people are teenagers, and I treat them as teenagers in this sense. I try to be them aware of how many possibilities they have. They often they don't understand how big are the opportunities. There are more opportunities in Romania than everywhere this time. I'm really convinced of this. In Italy, everything is blocked from money, from problem. We understand now with the virus, and still today, if I think about all the countries I work with, I think that Romania has still an enormous space of improvement. And so I try to convince them about this, just to not be limited in their vision. This is all.
Thank you very much, Bruno.
Finish.
Thank you for sharing.
I
Anyone
enjoyed
else?
the conversation, Christina and Vlad. I enjoyed the conversation, and thank you to both of you for putting this together, and thank you to my fellow panelists for throwing up some interesting ideas, which we can always develop on. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Basal. It was a pleasure indeed. It was a wonderful way of spending these 2 hours. Any other thoughts?
Yes, it was an interesting discussion, and I really can imagine to follow through some of the thoughts and the ideas and to discuss further. It's a rich mixture that we brought together, that you brought together.
All of us. I think that's important. It was a co-creation exercise for sure. Thank you so much. Any other things from the rest of you? Maya, Paul, Ximena, or Edward?
I like the reminders from my fellow coaches. Not knowing is the mindset. Need to unlearn. Not knowing the answers. And I like the cultural stuff that Ximena brought as well too. I mean, I'm a big fan of that topic. I can always learn more of that, and brought some good ideas. So this was a nice way to learn from fellow peers. Thank you, all of you.
I fully agree. Sorry, Petra, did you say something? No, I fully agree with Paul. I think this has been a very unusual setup of a coaching discussion, because we are from different fields, different cultures, different, I would say, different understanding of what coaching is about. I'm sure that each of us are doing the best to serve our clients and to bring the best out of them, but from different angles. And I learned many specific details that I think has enriched my way of seeing coaching from my based on the one I had before. So thank you very much for all of you, to all of you, for sharing and for enriching our lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. That was beautiful. That was really nice as a reminder. There's still a couple of opinions or ideas.
I would also like to thank everyone for sharing their own thoughts and experience. I really enjoyed it a lot. I love living in Romania, and I always promote this country to everyone I know, everyone abroad, and I hope there will be more foreigners coming here and discovering all this beauty and opportunities. So thank you all, and I have to excuse myself, I have to run. So hope to see you again.
Thank you, Maya.
Bye.
Thank you so much for your time. Bye, Maya.
Thank you.
Ximena, as Vlad mentioned at the beginning, said you were exactly in the middle of everyone. Now, would you like, you're still in the middle of even if Maya left, you're still in the middle of the screen for, for all of us. And that was a beautiful balance that you brought, because, you know, you could look at both perspectives and talk from your experience, but also from perception of how culture should be looked at, and also from the knowledge of culture, how should culture be looked at. Do you want to add something to the entire conversation? Do you want to sum up something, some ideas from this entire?
I was really glad to participate, and I'm already curious of knowing more about many of you. It's also inspiring to see how each one of you have given the personal touch to what you do, and there's always a lot of space to learn from that. And in this case, yes, to be able to have the two worlds for me was very nice, the intercultural part and the coaching part. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We still have some people that are still present with us, and I'm going to try to bring them on the screen. So bear with me. I hope that I don't do something that ends up wrongly now. But I'm going to, first of all, wrap it up by saying thank you very much to everyone. I'm really going to take those points in keeping them in mind myself also, and I think everyone has a couple of ideas to reflect upon. And if anyone wants to reach out in any kind of way to write questions or follow-ups or anything from this discussion, gladly. There's the two channels that we've used as LinkedIn and Facebook. They're still going to remain active, and we can use them to continue the conversation. I'm still not going to forget about the idea of reaching out to all of you and say, let's have also a conversation, any form that it takes in talking about what coaching is and how coaching should be perceived. And like Edward said, everyone does this from their own angle, and what are those angles and how can we understand more about those angles, and then go back and reflect what is our own perspective and our own angle. So thank you very much. Thanks.